The champagne flutes clinked around me like tiny bells announcing my doom, but I barely heard them over the roar of blood in my ears. My wedding dress, a borrowed thing that smelled faintly of mothballs and someone else's dreams, scratched against my collarbone as I stood frozen in the reception hall doorway. The scent of lilies was overwhelming, cloying, mixing with the sharp tang of my own nervous sweat beneath layers of cheap fabric. I was nobody. A waitress who'd traded her stained apron for white tulle, believing in fairy tales that didn't exist for girls like me. "You look beautiful, honey." My mother's voice cracked with tears she'd been holding back all day. Her fingers, rough from years of cleaning other people's houses, smoothed down my veil one last time. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe that I looked like anything other than what I was. A 23-year-old woman so desperate to escape her cramped studio apartment and double shifts at Romano's diner that she'd said yes to a man who'd never really seen her at all. Marcus, my groom, the man who'd promised me safety, stability, a future that didn't involve aching feet and the smell of grease embedded in my skin. The reception hall wasn't elegant. It was a community center we'd rented for cheap, decorated with drugstore streamers and flowers I'd arranged myself at 4 a.m, but it was mine. Ours. Or so I'd thought. I stepped inside, my heels, also borrowed, half a size too small, clicking against the scuffed linoleum. The guests turned to look at me, their faces blurring together in the dim lighting. 40 people, maybe. Marcus's friends from work, a few distant relatives who'd come for the free food. My mother, my younger sister, already bored and checking her phone. Then I saw him. He wasn't part of our wedding party. He shouldn't have been there at all. He stood near the back, partially obscured by shadow, but impossible to miss. Tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked professionally styled even in the unflattering overhead lights. His suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of fabric that whispered money when it moved. 2 men flanked him, both wearing dark glasses indoors, their postures rigid and alert in a way that made my skin prickle. I didn't know who he was, but something in my chest tightened when his gaze found mine across the room. Dark eyes. Unreadable. Assessing me like I was a puzzle he'd already solved. The moment shattered when Marcus grabbed my hand, his palm clammy against mine. "There you are," he said, his voice tight with something I couldn't identify. Anxiety? Guilt? His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Come on. They're waiting for our first dance." The music started, some generic love song I'd chosen from a free playlist, and Marcus pulled me onto the makeshift dance floor. His hands settled on my waist, but they felt wrong, distant, like he was touching me from very far away. "Marcus," I whispered, trying to catch his eyes. "Are you okay?" "Fine." The word came out clipped. "Just tired, long day." But his gaze kept drifting over my shoulder, back toward the entrance, back toward his phone, which he'd checked 3 times during the ceremony. We swayed mechanically. He smelled like the cologne I'd given him for his birthday. Cheap, too sweet, and underneath it, something sour. Fear, maybe. Or regret. "Who's that man in the back?" I asked, nodding slightly toward the stranger who was still watching us. "The one in the expensive suit?" Marcus's whole body went rigid. "Nobody. Just someone from the neighborhood. Don't worry about it." But the way he said it made me worry about everything. The song ended too quickly and too slowly all at once. Applause rippled through the small crowd, half-hearted and obligatory. Marcus kissed my cheek, a dry, brief press of lips that felt like a goodbye, and then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out immediately. His face went white. "I have to..." He looked at me, then away, then back at the phone. "I have to take this. Now?" My voice cracked. "Marcus, we're literally at our wedding reception." "It's important." He was already backing away, the phone pressed to his ear. It's about work. I'll be right back. 5 minutes, I promise." He disappeared into the hallway before I could respond, leaving me alone in the center of the room with everyone staring. Heat crawled up my neck. My sister looked away, embarrassed for me. My mother's expression crumbled. 5 minutes became 10, then 20. I stood there like an idiot, still holding my wilted bouquet, while guests began helping themselves to the buffet I'd spent my last paycheck on. The DJ played another song to fill the awkward silence. Someone laughed too loudly. Someone else whispered behind their hand. The man in the expensive suit hadn't moved. He was still watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I gathered my too long skirt in shaking hands and walked toward the hallway, my borrowed heels making angry clicks against the floor. The bathroom door was closed. I could hear Marcus's voice through it, low and urgent. "I know, baby, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Please, just let me explain. Baby." The word hit me like a physical blow. My hand, reaching for the door handle, froze in midair. "I love you," Marcus was saying, his voice breaking. "I've always loved you. This wedding, it was a mistake. I know that now. I was confused. I was scared. But seeing you at the hospital, knowing you needed me..." I pushed the door open. Marcus spun around, his face red and tear-streaked. The phone was still pressed to his ear. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Him guilty and caught, me trying to understand what I was hearing. "I have to go," he said into the phone. Not to me. To whoever was on the other end. "I'll call you back." "Who was that?" My voice sounded strange, hollow, like it was coming from someone else's body. "Babe?" "Who was that?" He swallowed hard. "It's complicated. We just got married 30 minutes ago." I was shaking now, the bouquet trembling in my grip. "Uncomplicated. It's..." He ran his hand through his hair, destroying the careful styling we'd paid for. "It's Sarah, my ex. She's in the hospital and she called. And Your ex." The words tasted like poison. "You left our wedding reception to talk to your ex. She needed me. I needed you." The shout ripped out of me before I could stop it. "I'm your wife. We just made vows. You promised. I know what I promised." He was yelling now too, his face flushed with anger and shame. "But you don't understand. Sarah and we have history. Things are complicated with her family, with money I borrowed from her father." The rest of his words became white noise. "Money. Of course it was about money. It was always about money. I'd been so stupid. I want an annulment," I heard myself say. My voice was calm now. "Dead. Right now. Tonight. I want this marriage erased like it never happened. You can't just... watch me." I turned and walked back toward the reception hall, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. I would not give them the satisfaction of watching me break. The guests had heard us shouting. They stood in awkward clusters, pretending to look anywhere but at me. My mother started toward me, her face stricken, but I held up my hand to stop her. The man in the expensive suit was suddenly there, blocking my path to the exit. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp jawline, olive skin, a small scar above his left eyebrow that should have made him look dangerous, and did, but in a way that made my breath catch instead of making me want to run. He smelled like cedar, and something darker, something that made me think of smoke and secrets. "Excuse me," I managed, trying to step around him. "You're leaving?" His voice was deep, accented, Italian maybe, and entirely too calm for the chaos erupting around us. "Yes." I didn't owe him an explanation. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. "In that dress? Without your coat?" He nodded toward the exit, where October wind was rattling the windows. "It's cold outside. I'll manage." His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "I'm sure you will. You look like someone who knows how to survive." The words hit differently than he probably meant them, like he saw something in me that I'd forgotten was there. One of his men appeared with a long black coat. Women's, expensive, smelling of leather and luxury. The stranger held it out to me. "I don't need your charity," I said, even though I was already shivering. "It's not charity. Consider it a loan. You can return it when you're ready." Behind me, Marcus's voice rose again, arguing with someone. Probably my mother. The scene was becoming a spectacle. I could feel eyes on us, people pulling out phones to record the disaster my life had become. I took the coat. It was heavy, warm, and far too big, but it swallowed me in a way that felt like protection. Like armor. "Thank you," I whispered. He stepped aside to let me pass, but as I moved, his hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. His skin was warm, his grip confident without being threatening. "What's your name?" he asked. I should have pulled away, should have told him it was none of his business. But something about the way he looked at me, like I mattered, like I was worth remembering, made me answer. "Aria. Aria." He repeated it slowly, tasting each syllable. Beautiful name for a beautiful woman having a terrible night. That's one way to put it. There are better ways. His thumb brushed against my pulse point. So briefly I almost thought I'd imagined it. Better nights ahead too, I think. Then he released me and stepped back, his men immediately closing ranks around him again. I walked out into the cold October night, wrapped in a stranger's coat that cost more than my entire life, and I didn't look back. I didn't see Marcus follow me out 30 seconds later. I didn't see him grab my shoulder and spin me around in the parking lot. I didn't see the black SUV pull up with perfect timing, or the way the stranger from inside stepped out and positioned himself between us with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. But I felt it when Marcus's hand fell away from my shoulder. I felt it when the stranger said something too quiet for me to hear, something that made Marcus go pale and take 3 steps backward. I felt it when those dark eyes found mine again and he asked, "Do you need a ride?" And I felt it when I said yes. Even though every rational part of my brain was screaming that I was making a terrible mistake, because terrible mistakes were all I had left that night. The SUV's interior smelled like leather and power, rich, intoxicating, nothing like Marcus's beat-up Honda that always reeked of fast food and broken promises. I sank into the seat, the wedding dress bunching awkwardly around my legs, and tried to process what I'd just done. Getting into a stranger's car, a stranger who traveled with armed guards and wore watches that probably cost more than my mother's house. The door closed with a solid thunk that spoke of bulletproof glass and serious money. He slid in beside me, maintaining a careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than if he'd sat close. The driver pulled away smoothly, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot like a ghost I'd already forgotten. "Where to?" The stranger's voice was quiet, almost gentle. I realized I had nowhere to go. My apartment, the studio I'd shared with Marcus for the past year, was filled with his things. His name was on the lease. My mother's place had no room, not really. My sister's couch was always an option. But the thought of explaining this disaster made my throat close up. "I don't know," I whispered, staring at my hands. The wedding ring, cheap gold plate that was already turning my finger green, felt like a shackle. Then we drive until you figure it out. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. I became aware of other things. The soft hum of the engine, the partition between us and the driver, the way his bodyguard in the passenger seat kept checking mirrors like he expected trouble. Classical music played quietly from hidden speakers, something melancholy and beautiful that matched the ache in my chest. "You're probably wondering who I am," he said after a long silence. Among other things, I turned to look at him properly for the first time. The streetlights cast shadows across his face, highlighting the sharp angles, the fullness of his mouth, the intelligence in those dark eyes. He was young, maybe 30, 32 at most, but carried himself with the authority of someone much older. "Why were you at my wedding?" "I wasn't." His lips curved slightly. "I was at the community center for other business. Your celebration was simply happening in the room I needed to walk past." "That's a coincidence." "I don't believe in coincidences." Neither did I, not anymore. "What kind of business?" I asked, even though I suspected I didn't want to know the answer. He studied me for a long moment, like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. "The kind that requires discretion and trust. The kind that most people pretend doesn't exist, even though it runs beneath every city like veins beneath skin." A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. "You're in the Mafia." It wasn't a question. He didn't deny it. Such an ugly word for a complicated reality. He shifted slightly, and I caught the glint of something metallic beneath his jacket. A gun. Of course he carried a gun. "My name is Dante Salvatore. My family has protected this city's interests for 3 generations. Protected. Such a careful word choice. And what do you want with me? My voice came out steadier than I felt. You don't help random strangers out of the goodness of your heart. Men like you don't have random moments of kindness. Men like me. He seemed amused by that. What do you think you know about men like me, Arya? Enough to know I should get out of this car. And yet you're not asking me to stop. He was right. I wasn't. Because despite everything, the gun, the guards, the obvious danger radiating from him like heat, I felt safer in this SUV than I had standing in that reception hall wearing a wedding dress and watching my marriage disintegrate before it even began. Why were you watching me? I pressed. Before everything fell apart, you were staring. Dante was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because you looked like you were drowning in a room full of people who should have been saving you, and because I know what it's like to make promises to the wrong person. Something in his voice made me think he wasn't talking about marriage. The SUV turned down streets I didn't recognize, heading toward the waterfront where buildings got taller and lights got brighter. Old money districts, places I'd only seen while serving coffee to people who didn't bother learning my name. I need to go home, I said, even though the thought made me want to cry. I need to figure out what happens next. Do you? Dante pulled out his phone, one of 3 I could see in his jacket, and typed something quickly. Or do you need one night where you don't have to figure anything out? One night where someone else handles the complications? I can't afford... I'm not asking you to afford anything. He pocketed the phone. I'm offering you a hotel room, safe, clean, yours for as long as you need it. No strings, no expectations, just a place to breathe. Every warning bell in my head was ringing. This was how girls disappeared. This was how terrible decisions became permanent consequences. But I was so tired of being smart, being careful, being the good girl who did everything right, and still ended up humiliated and alone. Why? I demanded. Why would you do that for a complete stranger? His eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat, I saw something raw beneath the controlled exterior, something that looked almost like recognition. Maybe I'm not as complicated as I seem, he said quietly. Or maybe I just hate seeing someone treated like they're disposable when they're clearly anything but. The SUV stopped in front of the Meridian, a hotel I'd walked past 100 times but never imagined entering. Doormen in crisp uniforms, marble steps, revolving doors that caught and reflected the city lights like diamonds. Dante's bodyguard opened the door. Cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of the nearby harbor, salt and possibility and danger. Last chance to say no, Dante said, not moving. I can take you anywhere you want to go. Your mother's house, a friend's place, back to that parking lot if you've lost your mind completely. I looked down at the wedding dress, at the wilted bouquet still somehow clutched in my lap, at the borrowed coat that smelled like him, cedar and smoke and secrets. Then I looked at him. One night, I said, just tonight. Tomorrow I figure out my life. Tomorrow you figure out your life, he agreed. I stepped out of the SUV on shaking legs. The bodyguard stayed close, not threatening, just present, as Dante came around and offered his arm like we were at some society function, instead of me being a runaway bride having a complete breakdown. Inside, the lobby was all gold fixtures and hushed luxury. Piano music drifted from somewhere. People in expensive clothes moved with the confidence of those who belonged. I felt like an imposter, like someone had made a terrible mistake letting me through the doors. Dante walked to the front desk, and the manager appeared instantly. No waiting, no questions. Money and power moved like that, I was learning. Smoothing paths, erasing obstacles. Mr. Salvatore, the manager's smile was professionally warm. Your usual suite? The corner suite on 12, for Ms. Arya. He paused, realizing he didn't know my last name. Bennett, I supplied quietly. For Ms. Bennett, indefinitely. Put it on my account. She's to have anything she requires. Room service, spa access, anything at all. No questions, no bills sent to her room. The manager didn't even blink. Of course, sir. Right away. A key card appeared. Dante took it but didn't immediately hand it over. The suite has a separate bedroom and living area, he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. The doors lock from the inside. My number will be programmed into the room phone, but you don't have to call it. Ever. You can stay 1 night or 1 month. You can leave at 4 in the morning and never look back. This is yours. No obligations. I took the key card. Our fingers brushed, just for a second, and I felt that shock of contact all the way to my bones. Why are you being kind to me? I whispered. Because someone should be. He stepped back, creating distance between us again. Professional. Controlled. And because I have a feeling you're going to need a friend in the coming days. Whether you know it yet or not. I don't understand. You will. Something dark crossed his expression. Your husband, ex-husband soon, he owes money to some very unpleasant people. People who don't forgive debts. And the woman he was talking to on the phone? Her father is one of those people. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. What? Marcus Chen borrowed $200,000 from Vincent Rossi 6 months ago. Mr. Rossi's daughter, Sarah, was your husband's girlfriend before you. The money was supposed to be for a business investment. Instead, Marcus used it for... Dante's jaw tightened. Other purposes. When the debt came due and he couldn't pay, Mr. Rossi made certain suggestions about how Marcus might resolve his situation. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. He suggested Marcus marry someone else. Someone with no connections to his world. Someone disposable. Someone who could be leveraged if necessary. Me. My voice broke. I was never a wife. I was collateral. Dante's expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes held something that looked like anger. Not at me, but for me. Sarah called him tonight because her father found out about the wedding. He continued quietly. And because she's apparently decided she wants Marcus back, despite everything. Or perhaps because of it. Some people enjoy possessing broken things. I thought I might be sick. The beautiful lobby spun around me, gold and marble and lies. How do you know all this? I managed. Because Vincent Rossi operates in my city, and because I make it my business to know who owes what to whom. He paused. Also because Marcus tried to borrow money from my organization 2 weeks ago. We declined. Why? Because I don't invest in desperate men who lie about their circumstances. His voice was cold now, the warmth from earlier completely gone. And because something about his desperation felt wrong. So I had him investigated, and you found out about me. I found out he was getting married to a waitress from Romano's diner who had no idea what she was walking into. The world felt very small suddenly. Very dangerous. I should go to the police, I said, even though I knew how hollow that sounded. And tell them what? That your husband took out a legal loan and married you legally? That he changed his mind on your wedding night? Dante's tone was gentle but firm. The police can't help you with this, Arya. This is a different kind of problem. And you can help me? I can keep you safe while you figure out your next move. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. Hysterical. Exhausted. By putting me in a hotel room, that doesn't solve anything. Marcus knows where I work, where my mother lives, where... Marcus won't bother you. The certainty in Dante's voice was absolute. I've made sure he understands the consequences of trying. What did you say to him in the parking lot? That you're under my protection now, and that if he or anyone associated with him comes near you, I'll consider it a personal insult. His eyes met mine. In my world, personal insults have permanent consequences. I should have been terrified, should have run screaming from this beautiful, dangerous man who spoke about violence like it was a business transaction. Instead, I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been tight and suffocating for longer than just tonight. I don't want to owe you, I said carefully. I don't want to trade one cage for another. You don't owe me anything. This isn't a transaction. Dante tilted his head slightly, studying me. Consider it an apology from the universe for giving you such a terrible wedding night. Or consider it insurance. If Vincent Rossi thinks you're connected to me, he won't try to use you against Marcus, which means you're free. Actually free. Men like you don't do things for free. No, he agreed. We usually don't, but sometimes we make exceptions for people who deserve better than they got. The elevator dinged softly. The bodyguard was holding it open, waiting. Dante gestured toward it. 12 floors up. Turn right. Corner suite. There's a balcony with a view of the harbor. I'm told it's peaceful. I walked toward the elevator on autopilot, my mind still trying to process everything. The doors were closing when I suddenly reached out to stop them. Dante? He turned back, one eyebrow raised. Thank you, I said, for being kind, even if it's complicated. His expression softened just slightly. Get some rest, Arya. Tomorrow, everything will look different. The doors closed on his face, and I was alone with the bodyguard who stared straight ahead like I didn't exist. The suite was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked too expensive to touch, a bathroom bigger than my entire studio apartment. I stood in the middle of it, still wearing the wedding dress, and finally let myself cry, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body, for the marriage that was never real, for my own stupidity, for the future I'd imagined that had been built on lies. When the tears finally stopped, I peeled off the dress and left it in a pile on the floor. I showered until the water ran cold, washing away makeup and hairspray and the last traces of the girl who'd believed in fairy tales. The hotel robe was soft as a cloud. I wrapped myself in it and stood on the balcony Dante had mentioned, looking out at the dark water below. My phone, the cheap prepaid thing I'd been using, buzzed with texts. 47 from Marcus, 12 from my mother, 3 from my sister. I turned it off without reading them. Tomorrow, I would figure out my life. Tomorrow, I would deal with annulments and explanations and the wreckage of my choices. But tonight, I stood on a balcony in a borrowed robe and a suite I couldn't afford, protected by a man I didn't know, and felt safer than I had in months. Even if safety was just another beautiful lie. Morning came too quickly and not quickly enough. I woke tangled in sheets that felt like silk, my body aching in strange places. Stress, I realized, the physical manifestation of a life imploding. Sunlight streamed through windows I'd forgotten to close, painting the suite in shades of gold that made everything look like a dream I'd eventually wake from. My wedding dress still lay crumpled on the bathroom floor like a dead thing. I wrapped myself in the robe again and found a breakfast cart outside my door. Silver domes covering plates of food I hadn't ordered, strawberries, pastries, eggs prepared 3 different ways. Coffee that smelled like heaven. A small card rested against the coffee pot. Eat. Rest. You're safe. D. His handwriting was precise, controlled, just like everything else about him. I should have been suspicious, should have questioned why a Mafia boss was sending me breakfast and kind notes. But my stomach was growling, and the strawberries looked perfect, and I was so tired of being the responsible one who questioned everything. I ate on the balcony, watching the city wake up below. People rushing to jobs, living normal lives, unaware that some of us had our entire existences shatter overnight. My phone, still turned off, felt like a bomb waiting to explode, but I couldn't hide forever. 53 new messages. I scrolled through them with numb fingers. Marcus. Please let me explain. Marcus, it's not what you think, Marcus. I love you, Marcus. Where are you? We need to talk. Marcus. You can't just leave like this. Marcus, Arya, please. I'm worried about you. The last one made me laugh. A bitter, ugly sound. He was worried. How considerate. My mother's messages were worse somehow, full of concern and confusion, and that particular brand of disappointment that only mothers could perfect. What happened? Marcus says you left. Please call me. I need to know you're okay. People are asking questions. What should I tell them? What should she tell them? That her daughter had married a man who saw her as a convenient solution to his gambling debts? That fairy tales were just stories people told to make poverty feel temporary? I was composing a response, something vague and reassuring, when someone knocked on the door. My heart jumped. The peephole showed a woman in a hotel uniform, holding garment bags. Ms. Bennett? Her voice was professional, friendly. Mr. Salvatore sent these for you. May I bring them in? I opened the door a crack. She smiled and gestured to the bags. 4 of them, expensive looking. I don't need... He was very insistent, ma'am, said you'd need practical clothing. Nothing flashy. Just comfortable options. She wasn't going to leave until I accepted them. I stepped aside and let her in. The bags contained jeans that would actually fit me. Soft sweaters. Undergarments still in packaging. toiletries from brands I'd only seen in magazines. Everything in my size, everything thoughtful and appropriate and completely overwhelming. How did he know? Mr. Salvatore is very observant, the woman said with a knowing smile. Will there be anything else, ma'am? No. Thank you. She left, and I stared at the clothes spread across the bed. This was too much, too fast, too everything. I dressed in the jeans and a cream sweater that felt like wearing a cloud, then called the number programmed into the room phone before I could overthink it. He answered on the first ring. Aria. Just my name. But the way he said it made something flutter in my chest. The clothes, I started. The breakfast. The suite. It's too much. Is it? He sounded amused. Or is it just enough for someone who lost everything yesterday? I didn't lose everything. Your husband. Your home. Your plans for the future. Your sense of safety. His voice was quiet, but firm. That sounds like everything to me. I couldn't argue with that. Where are you? I asked instead. In a meeting. But I can leave if you need me. The casual way he offered, like abandoning important business for a stranger, was completely normal. Made my throat tight. No, I just wanted to say thank you and ask what happens now. Now you take time to figure out what you want. A few days, a week, however long you need. I can't hide in a hotel room forever. No, he agreed, but you can hide for now, at least until we resolve certain complications. Complications meaning Marcus and his debt? Among other things. I heard voices in the background, someone speaking rapid Italian. I have to go. But Aria? Don't leave the hotel without calling me first. Please. It should have sounded controlling. Instead, it sounded like care. Okay, I whispered. Good girl. The line went dead, and I stood there holding the phone, my face burning from two simple words that shouldn't have affected me at all. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. I tried to make plans, to figure out my next steps, but kept getting lost in spirals of anxiety. The annulment would be easy enough. We'd been married less than 24 hours, never consummated anything. But then what? Back to my studio that held nothing but memories of Marcus? Back to double shifts and the smell of grease and customers who snapped their fingers for refills? By evening, I was crawling out of my skin. The suite felt like a beautiful cage. I needed air, movement, something to remind me I was still real. I ventured down to the hotel bar, just for one drink, just to be around people who weren't in my head. The space was dark and sophisticated, all leather booths and soft jazz. I perched on a bar stool and ordered vodka on the rocks because wine felt too romantic and beer felt too sad. Rough day? The bartender was young, sympathetic. You could say that. Well, you're in the right place. This vodka could strip paint. I laughed despite myself. The drink burned going down. Perfect. I was halfway through my second when someone slid onto the stool next to me. Male cologne, expensive. A suit that whispered money. You're the girl from 12, the man said. Not a question. Salvatore's latest acquisition. I turned to look at him. Handsome in a bland way, with cold blue eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. I'm not anyone's acquisition. No, he gestured for the bartender to bring him scotch. That's not what it looks like. Dante Salvatore doesn't put women in corner suites because he's feeling charitable. My skin prickled with warning. I don't know what you think you know. I know Salvatore's reputation. I know he likes beautiful things, and I know he doesn't share. The man's eyes raked over me in a way that made me want to shower. But maybe you're the exception. Maybe you're tired of being locked up in that room like a princess in a tower. I think you should leave. I think I should introduce myself. Vincent Rossi, Jr. He extended his hand like this was a normal social situation. My father is the man your husband owes money to, which makes us practically family. My blood turned to ice. Vincent smiled at my reaction. There it is. The fear. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm not here to collect. I'm here because I'm curious about what Salvatore sees in you. What makes you worth protecting. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Dante didn't tell you he's declared you off limits? That anyone who touches you answers to him personally? Vincent leaned closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. That's practically a marriage proposal in our world. So either you're fucking him or you're bait for something bigger. I'm neither. I stood up on shaking legs. And I'm leaving. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist, tight enough to hurt. I don't think so. See, your disappearing act last night caused problems for my sister. Sarah really wants your husband back, and she always gets what she wants. Let go of me. Or what? You'll call Salvatore? He's in a meeting with the commission. Won't be available for hours. Vincent's grip tightened. Plenty of time for us to get better acquainted. The bartender had conveniently disappeared. The few other patrons weren't looking our way. I was alone with a man who saw me as leverage, as entertainment, as something to be used. Terror clawed up my throat. Then someone cleared their throat behind us. A polite, almost gentle sound. Vincent's head whipped around, and his face went pale. Dante stood there in his perfectly tailored suit, flanked by both bodyguards, looking like violence wrapped in expensive fabric. His expression was calm, almost pleasant, but his eyes were dead. "Remove your hand," Dante said quietly. "Now." Vincent released me so fast I stumbled. "Salvatore, I didn't know. We were just talking." "You were touching what's mine." Dante's voice never rose above conversational, but somehow it filled the entire bar. After I made it very clear what would happen if anyone tried. It was just conversation. It was assault, and threat, and violation of territory. Dante moved closer, and Vincent actually backed up. 3 transgressions. Normally I'd require payment for each. But since your father and I are attempting diplomacy, I'll be generous. Generous? Vincent's voice cracked. You'll leave. Now, you'll tell your father that his son is no longer welcome in any establishment I own or protect, which is most of this city, and you'll pray I don't change my mind and decide examples need to be made. Vincent looked like he might argue, might defend himself. Then he looked at Dante's eyes, really looked. And whatever he saw there made him go white. "I'm sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean... It won't happen again." "No," Dante agreed softly. "It won't." Vincent practically ran from the bar. The bodyguards followed him out, ensuring he actually left, I realized. Dante turned to me, and his entire demeanor shifted. The cold violence disappeared, replaced by concern. "Did he hurt you?" I looked down at my wrist. Red marks where Vincent had grabbed me, already starting to bruise. "I'm fine." "You're not." He was suddenly right there, his hands, gentle, so gentle, examining my wrist. "You're shaking." I was. My whole body was trembling with adrenaline and fear, and something else I couldn't name. "I thought you were in a meeting," I whispered. I was. Then my security detail informed me Vincent Rossi had entered my hotel and was heading to the bar where you'd gone for a drink. His jaw was tight. "The meeting became unimportant. You left." "I left. The commission can wait. You couldn't." His thumb brushed across my pulse point. Almost the same gesture from last night, but this time there was something fierce in his eyes. Something possessive that should have frightened me. It didn't. "I should have stayed in the room," I said. "You told me not to go anywhere without calling. You're not a prisoner, Arya. You can go where you want." He was still holding my wrist, still touching me like I was something precious. "But this city is dangerous for someone in your position. Vincent won't be the last person who tries to use you. Use me for what? To hurt me. To gain advantage. To prove they're not afraid." His eyes met mine. "You're under my protection. That makes you valuable. That makes you vulnerable." "I don't understand any of this." My voice broke. 24 hours ago, I was just a waitress getting married. Now I'm in the middle of some mob war I didn't ask for. "I know." Dante's free hand came up to cup my face. Warm, steady, grounding. "I know this isn't fair. I know you didn't choose this, but it's where we are, and I need you to trust me until we can make it safe again." "Why do you care?" The question came out raw. "You don't know me." Something flickered in his expression. Pain, maybe. Or memory. "Because someone should," he said, echoing his words from last night. "And because I'm tired of watching innocent people get destroyed by games they didn't know they were playing." The bartender reappeared, looking nervous. Dante didn't even glance at him. Put Ms. Bennett's drinks on my account. And clear the bar. We need privacy. The few remaining patrons were escorted out quickly. We were alone in the dim space, with jazz still playing softly, and my heart racing for entirely new reasons. Come on, Dante said gently. Let's get you back upstairs. I don't want to go back to that room. The words burst out before I could stop them. I feel like I'm going crazy up there. Just thinking, and then come with me. Where? Somewhere you can breathe, somewhere safe. He offered his hand, not grabbing, not demanding, just offering. Do you trust me? I shouldn't. Every logical part of my brain was screaming warnings. This man was dangerous, connected to violence and crime and things I didn't understand. But he'd protected me twice now. He'd been kind when he didn't have to be. And when he looked at me, I didn't feel invisible anymore. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm, strong, careful of my bruised wrist. And for the first time since Marcus's phone had rung at our wedding, I felt like maybe everything would be okay. Even if okay meant something completely different than I'd ever imagined. The SUV took us away from the hotel, through streets that grew quieter and more exclusive with each turn. Dante sat beside me, still holding my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. His thumb traced absent patterns across my knuckles, soothing, possessive, impossible to ignore. Where are we going? I asked as buildings gave way to gated estates. My home, where I can keep you safe without hotel staff gossiping about Vincent Rossi cornering you in the bar. Won't people gossip more if I'm at your house? His lips curved slightly. My people don't gossip. They value their lives too much. It should have been a joke. It wasn't. The gates opened before we even stopped. Tall, wrought iron, with security cameras I could see, and probably a dozen I couldn't. The driveway wound through manicured grounds that belonged in magazines. Then the house came into view, and I forgot how to breathe. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. All stone and glass and elegant lines that managed to look both modern and timeless. Lights glowed warm in windows. Fountains sparkled in the courtyard. It was the kind of place that made my studio apartment feel like a cardboard box. This is where you live? My voice came out smaller than I intended. One of the places. Dante helped me out of the SUV, his hand steady at the small of my back. I have apartments in the city, a house upstate, but this is home. A woman appeared at the door, older, Italian, with kind eyes and an apron dusted with flour. She took one look at me and started speaking rapid Italian to Dante, gesturing at my face, my bruised wrist, my general state of disaster. He answered in the same language, his tone calm and reassuring. The woman, his housekeeper, I guessed, nodded and disappeared inside, still muttering. What did she say? I asked. That you look like you need feeding and a grandmother's care. He guided me through the door. Maria has been with my family since I was born. She's seen everything and judges no one. You're safe with her. The interior was stunning. High ceilings, art that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime, furniture that managed to look expensive and comfortable simultaneously. But it also felt lived in, books on tables, a jacket thrown over a chair, the smell of something baking. The living room is through there, Dante said, pointing. Make yourself comfortable. I need to make some calls about Vincent's little stunt. Is he going to be a problem? Not after tonight. His expression went cold. By morning, everyone will know what happens when someone touches you. There won't be a second incident. He left before I could ask what exactly would happen. I wandered into the living room, drawn by the fireplace crackling with actual flames. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, showing gardens lit by subtle lighting. It was beautiful and terrifying, and so far from my reality I felt like an alien. Maria appeared with a tray, tea, cookies that were still warm, a knowing smile. You eat, she said in heavily accented English. You too skinny. That husband. She made a disgusted sound. He don't feed you right. He's not my husband anymore. Good. He was garbage. She patted my hand. Mr. Dante, he will take care of you proper. You see? Before I could process that statement, she was gone again. I sat on the couch, soft leather, probably Italian, and tried to understand how my life had become this surreal. 2 days ago, I was planning a future with Marcus. Now I was drinking tea in a mob boss's mansion while he made threatening phone calls about a man who'd grabbed me in a bar. Dante returned 20 minutes later, his jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were far too distracting. He looked tired suddenly, the mask of control slipping just enough to show the man beneath. "It's handled," he said, pouring himself whiskey from a crystal decanter. "Vincent won't bother you again. Neither will his father or anyone associated with them." "What did you do?" "Called in favors, made certain promises, reminded people of certain consequences." He took a long drink. "The details don't matter. What matters is you're safe. For how long?" "As long as you need to be." I set down my teacup with shaking hands. "I can't live in your protection forever. Eventually, I have to go back to my life." "What life?" His voice was gentle but honest. "The apartment you shared with Marcus? The job where Vincent now knows you work? The mother's house that's listed in public records?" He moved closer, crouching in front of me so we were eye level. "Aria, your old life isn't safe anymore, not because of anything you did, but because Marcus made you a target when he married you to avoid his debts." "So what? I just disappear? Become someone else?" "No. You become someone untouchable." His hand found my uninjured wrist, his touch impossibly gentle. "You stay under my protection until the situation with the Rossis is resolved. Then we figure out what comes next." "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" The question hung between us, heavy, complicated, dangerous. Dante's eyes searched mine for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know yet. Maybe just the satisfaction of doing something right for once. Maybe something more." "More? You're beautiful, Aria, and brave, and so much stronger than you realize." His thumb brushed across my pulse point again, that gesture that made my breath catch. "I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to know you better, want to know what you look like when you're not drowning. Want to—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Want to what?" "Want to keep you." The words came out rough. "Not as protection. Not as obligation. Just keep you." My heart was racing so fast I thought he could probably feel it. "You don't even know me. I know you married a man to escape poverty and he treated you like collateral. I know you walked out of your wedding with your head high even though you were breaking apart. I know Vincent Rossi grabbed you and you were ready to fight instead of freeze." His other hand came up to cup my face. "I know enough to know I want more." "This is crazy." "Yes." "You're a criminal." "Yes." "I should be terrified of you, probably." His eyes held mine. "Are you?" I should have been. Every rational thought said run, but all I felt was heat and safety and something that felt dangerously like desire. "No," I whispered. Something flared in his expression, triumph, hunger, possession all at once. But he didn't move closer, didn't take what I was almost offering. "Then stay," he said quietly. "Not in the hotel. Here, where I can actually breathe without looking over your shoulder." "Stay in your house?" "In the guest wing. Your own space, your own privacy. Maria will be here during the day. My security team monitors the grounds." He was still touching my face, my wrist, like he couldn't quite stop. "I'm not asking you to share my bed, Aria. I'm asking you to let me keep you safe until you're ready to face the world again. And if I'm never ready, then you stay forever." He said it like a vow. "I have enough space, enough money, enough power to make sure you never have to worry about anything again." It was too much. Too fast. Too everything. But I was so tired of being alone. So tired of being afraid. And when Dante looked at me like that, like I was something precious instead of disposable, I wanted to believe in impossible things again. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll stay. For now." His smile was like sunrise. Rare, beautiful, transformative. "Come on," he said, standing and offering his hand again. "Let me show you your rooms." The guest wing was bigger than my entire apartment had been. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area, a balcony overlooking the gardens. Clothes already hung in the closet, more thoughtful choices in my size, casual and comfortable and expensive. "How did you—" I called ahead while you were drinking tea." He leaned against the doorframe, watching me take it all in. "Maria's daughter is your size. She sent over some things to tide you over until we can get you a proper wardrobe." "I don't need a proper wardrobe." "Everyone needs clothes that make them feel like themselves. Even temporary refugees from terrible marriages." I laughed despite myself. He smiled at the sound. "Get some rest," he said softly. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the annulment paperwork. Maria will make you breakfast, and if you need anything at all, my room is at the end of the hall."
"Where's your room?" "Directly above yours." His eyes held mine. "Close enough to hear if you call, far enough to give you space. And if I don't want space," the question escaped before I could stop it. Dante went very still. "Then you come find me," he said, his voice rough. "But Arya, don't come unless you're sure, because if you show up at my door, I won't be noble about turning you away. I'll give you exactly what you're asking for, and I don't do anything halfway." Heat flooded through me. Want, need, something that felt like madness. "Noted," I managed. He pushed off the doorframe and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the hardwood. I stood there, trembling, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. The bed was massive and comfortable, but I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus's face when he left me for that phone call. Vincent's hand on my wrist. Dante's eyes when he'd said he wanted to keep me. Around midnight, I gave up and wandered downstairs, drawn by light coming from what looked like a library. Dante sat in a leather chair, papers spread around him, reading glasses perched on his nose, such a normal detail that it made him seem almost human. He looked up when I entered, not surprised. "Couldn't sleep?" "Too much thinking." "Come here." He patted the couch nearby, not his chair, giving me space while offering company. I curled up on the couch, tucking my feet beneath me. The fire was dying down, casting dancing shadows across the room. "Can I ask you something?" I said after a while. "Anything. Why do you care, really? Not the noble reasons or the protection reasons. The real reason." Dante was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he removed his glasses and set aside his papers. "When I was 25, I fell in love with a woman my family didn't approve of. She wasn't from our world. She was sweet and innocent, and saw good in everything, even me." His voice was distant, remembering. "My father wanted me to marry someone connected, someone useful. So he arranged an accident, made it look like she'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time." My breath caught. He killed her? He had her killed, and I was too late to stop it because I didn't realize what he was capable of until she was already gone. Dante's eyes found mine, and they were full of old pain. "I swore after that I'd never let anyone innocent get hurt by my world again, that if I saw someone drowning, I'd pull them out. No matter what it cost me. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am, made me strong enough to take over when my father died, strong enough to change how we operate." He paused. "But when I saw you at that wedding, looking lost and alone while your husband talked to another woman, you reminded me of her, of innocence about to be crushed. And I thought, not this time. This time I save her." Tears burned my eyes. "I'm not her. No. You're you, which is somehow better." "How?" "Because you're here. Alive. Giving me a chance to do something right for once." I uncurled from the couch and crossed to his chair. He watched me approach with dark, careful eyes, wanting but waiting, always waiting for me to decide. I knelt in front of him, taking his hands in mine. "Thank you," I whispered, "for saving me, for seeing me, for being kind when you didn't have to be. Arya, I'm not going to your room tonight. I'm not ready for that." I squeezed his hands. "But I want you to know, I see you too. And whatever this is between us, I'm not running from it." His breath caught. For a moment, the powerful, controlled mob boss disappeared, and I saw just a man who'd lost too much and was terrified of losing again. "You should get some rest," he said finally, his voice rough. "So should you." "I will. Soon." I stood, but before I could walk away, he pulled me back.
His lips brushed my forehead, so gentle, so careful. And then he released me. Sweet dreams, Arya. You too, Dante. I walked back to my room with my heart racing and my mind spinning. Tomorrow, I would face the annulment, the aftermath, the future I couldn't quite picture yet. But tonight, I was safe, I was seen. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be. Even if where I wanted to be was in the home of a dangerous man who looked at me like I was worth protecting. 3 weeks passed like a strange dream. The annulment went through without contest. Marcus signed everything his lawyer put in front of him, probably terrified of what would happen if he didn't. I never saw him again. Dante made sure of that. My days took on a rhythm I'd never experienced before. Mornings with Maria, who insisted on teaching me to make proper Italian bread while telling me scandalous stories about Dante's childhood. Afternoons in the library, reading books I'd never had time for when I was working double shifts. Evenings with Dante when he came home from whatever business kept him in the city. Dinners where we talked about everything and nothing, learning each other in pieces. He never pushed, never demanded more than I was willing to give. But the tension between us grew like a living thing, stretching tighter with each lingering look, each accidental touch. Each night I went to bed alone while knowing he was just upstairs. The bruises on my wrist had faded. Vincent Rossi had apparently left the country, or so Dante's people reported. Marcus's debt had been absorbed into some larger negotiation between Dante and the Rossi family, resolved in ways I didn't ask about. I was safe, free, living in luxury I'd never imagined, and I was falling in love with a man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. It was Thursday evening when everything changed. Dante came home earlier than usual, his expression dark in a way I'd learned meant trouble. "What's wrong?" I asked, looking up from the book I'd been pretending to read. He poured himself whiskey, always whiskey when things were bad, and drank half of it before answering. "Vincent Rossi is dead." My blood turned cold. "What?" "His body was found this morning, shot execution style in an alley downtown. Dante's jaw was tight, and someone is trying to make it look like I ordered it." "Did you?" "No." He met my eyes without flinching. "Despite what he did to you, killing him would have started a war I don't need. Someone else did this. Someone who wants the Rossis and Salvatores destroying each other. What does that mean for us? It means the truce is broken. It means Vincent's father will demand blood for blood. And it means you're in more danger now than you were before." He crossed to where I sat, crouching down like he had that first night. "I need to send you somewhere safe, out of the city. Out of the country if necessary." "No." "Arya, no." I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. "I'm not running. I'm not leaving you to deal with this alone. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you protected me, when you brought me into your home. When you—" I stopped, the words catching in my throat. "When I what?" His voice was rough. "When you made me care about you," I whispered. "When you made me feel safe for the first time in my life. When you looked at me like I was something precious instead of something disposable. You are precious." His hands came up to cover mine. "Which is exactly why I need you away from this. And what if I don't want to be away from this? Away from you?" Something fierce flared in his eyes. "Don't say things you don't mean, Arya. Not now. Not when—" I kissed him. It wasn't gentle or uncertain. It was 3 weeks of tension and fear and desire crashing together all at once. His lips were warm and tasted like whiskey and danger. And when he made a sound low in his throat and pulled me closer, I felt like I'd finally come home. He broke the kiss, breathing hard. "You need to be sure. Once we cross this line, I'm sure." I climbed into his lap, straddling him in the chair, not caring that Maria might walk in, or that his phone was buzzing with what were probably urgent calls. "I've been sure for weeks. I was just waiting for you to stop being noble about it." "Noble." He laughed, dark and wanting. "There's nothing noble about what I want to do to you." "Then do it." His control shattered. He stood with me in his arms, strong, effortless, and carried me upstairs, not to my room, to his. The space was masculine and elegant, with a massive bed and windows overlooking the gardens. He set me down on sheets that smelled like him, cedar and smoke and safety, and looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered in his entire dangerous world. "Last chance to run," he said, his voice rough. "I'm done running." What happened next was overwhelming and perfect, and nothing like the fumbling encounters I'd had with Marcus. Dante touched me like I was art. Like every sound I made was a revelation he wanted to memorize. He was demanding but careful, possessive but gentle, giving me everything I'd been too afraid to ask for. When it was over, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. My heart clenched. "Okay." "The investigation into Vincent's murder? It's pointing toward Marcus." I went very still. "What?" Apparently, he'd been making noise about wanting revenge on the people who destroyed his life. Vincent was an easy target, young, arrogant, often alone. Dante's arm tightened around me. "My people think Marcus hired someone to kill Vincent, knowing it would look like me, knowing it would start a war that would destroy both families and leave him free of his debts. That's insane. That's desperate. And Marcus has always been desperate." I thought about the man I'd almost married. The lies, the manipulation, the way he'd used me as collateral. Was he capable of murder? Of starting a war? "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Find proof. Present it to the Rossis before they retaliate. Hope they value truth over vengeance." He pressed a kiss to my hair. "And keep you safe while I do it. I want to help." "Absolutely not." "Dante, no." He rolled over, pinning me beneath him, his eyes fierce. "You are the one good thing in my life right now. The one pure thing in all this ugliness. I won't risk you. I won't lose you the way I lost her." "I'm not her," I said softly. "And you're not your father. We get to write our own story." His expression cracked, showing the vulnerability underneath. "What if our story ends badly? Then at least we were brave enough to try." He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. And I felt his fear, and his hope, and his desperate need to protect me all tangled together. We spent the night wrapped around each other, making promises with our bodies that we couldn't quite say with words. Morning came too soon. Dante was on the phone before dawn, coordinating his people, building his case against Marcus. I watched him work, brilliant and ruthless and completely focused, and understood why people feared him, but I also saw the man beneath, the one who made sure Maria had her arthritis medication, who donated anonymously to the diner where I used to work, who kissed me goodbye like I was the most important thing in his world. "Stay inside today," he said as he prepared to leave. "Security will be doubled. Don't answer the door for anyone except Maria. Be careful. Always." He cupped my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. "This will be over soon, and then we can figure out what comes next." "What do you want to come next?" "You. Me, figuring out how to be normal people for once." He smiled. "Rare, beautiful, maybe even happy. I'd like that." He left, and the house felt empty without him. I tried to read, to help Maria with dinner preparations, to pretend my stomach wasn't churning with anxiety. Around 3 p.m, the doorbell rang. Maria went to answer it. She always did, screening visitors before they got anywhere near me. But instead of her usual cheerful greeting, I heard a gasp. Then silence. I moved toward the foyer on instinct, my heart racing. Marcus stood in the doorway, wild-eyed and holding a gun. "Hello, Arya," he said, his voice shaking. "We need to talk." Maria was on the floor, unconscious but breathing. My mind went blank with terror and rage. "You hit her." "She wouldn't let me in. I didn't have a choice." He gestured with the gun. "Come with me. Now. Or I start shooting and see how many guards I can take down before they kill me. Dante will find you. Dante is busy with the Rossis. And by the time he figures out where we went, it'll be too late." Marcus's smile was manic. "You ruined my life, Arya. You and your mob boss boyfriend, so now I'm going to use you to fix it." "How?" "The Rossis want blood for Vincent's death. I'm going to give them Dante Salvatore's woman, his weakness. And in exchange, They'll forgive my debts and give me enough money to disappear forever. You're insane. I'm desperate. There's a difference. He moved closer, the gun steady despite his shaking hands. Now walk, slowly. Your phone stays here. I looked at Maria's still form, at the security camera I knew was recording everything, at the panic button Dante had installed in the foyer that I couldn't reach without Marcus shooting me. And I walked. The car was running outside, a rental, nondescript. Marcus shoved me into the passenger seat and locked the doors centrally. My mind raced through options. Jump out at a red light, fight for the gun, scream for help. But we were moving too fast, and Marcus was too unpredictable, and I couldn't stop thinking about what Dante would do when he found out I'd been taken. We drove for 30 minutes, leaving the nice neighborhoods behind, heading into industrial areas I didn't recognize. An abandoned warehouse? How original. Marcus parked and dragged me inside. The space was dark, smelling of rust and old machinery. In the center, someone had set up chairs and lights. A makeshift interrogation room. They'll be here soon, Marcus said, tying my hands to the chair with zip ties that bit into my skin. The Rossis. They're going to ask you questions about Dante's operation. You're going to answer, and then they're going to kill you and send him the video. He'll destroy you for this. He'll try. But I'll be in Mexico by then, living on Rossi money. Marcus's laugh was broken. You should have just stayed with me, Arya. We could have figured it out together. But you had to run to him. You had to become his whore. I chose him, I said clearly. Not because he had money or power. Because he saw me as a person instead of a tool. Because he was kind when you were cruel. Because he made me feel safe when you made me feel disposable. Marcus hit me. A sharp crack across the face that made my ears ring. You don't get to judge me, he snarled. You don't know what it was like, owing that money, having Vincent threaten me every day, watching my life fall apart, so you decided to drag me down with you. You were supposed to fix it. Marrying you was supposed to buy me time, make them think I was stable, give me space to figure something out. His voice broke. But then Salvatore noticed you, and everything got worse, and now... The warehouse door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. Splinters and smoke and men in tactical gear pouring through like a nightmare made real. And leading them, face carved from rage and fear and something darker, was Dante. His eyes found mine across the space, checking for injuries, for life, for whatever had survived. Then they found Marcus, and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Let her go. Dante's voice was deadly calm. Now. Or what happens next will make Vincent Rossi's death look gentle. Marcus grabbed the gun, pressing it against my temple. Stay back! I'll shoot her! I swear I'll... The shot came from somewhere behind Dante. One of his men. A perfect marksman who put a bullet through Marcus's shoulder before he could finish the threat. The gun clattered to the floor. Marcus screamed. Then Dante was there, cutting through my zip ties with a knife that appeared from nowhere, pulling me into his arms so tightly I could barely breathe. I've got you, he said against my hair. You're safe. I've got you. I clung to him, shaking, trying not to cry and failing completely. Behind us, his men were securing Marcus, reading him his rights. Actual police rights, I realized dimly. Real cops mixed in with Dante's security team. You called the police? I managed. For this? Yes. Dante pulled back enough to examine my face, his thumb gentle on the bruise Marcus had left. He kidnapped you, assaulted you, attempted murder. I want him in prison for the rest of his life, not just dead in an alley. How did you find me? Security footage showed everything. We tracked his car through traffic cameras, and I knew where he'd go. He's not smart enough to be creative. His jaw was tight. I'm sorry I didn't get here sooner. You got here in time. That's what matters. We watched as the police took Marcus away, still screaming about debts and fairness and how none of this was his fault. I felt nothing watching him go. No regret, no sympathy. Just relief that it was finally over. The Rossis? I asked as Dante helped me to his car. Agreed to meet tomorrow. My people found evidence linking Marcus to Vincent's murder. Text messages, payments to the shooter, everything. He settled me into the seat carefully, like I might break. They'll get their justice. Just not from me. So it's over? It's over. Back at the house, Maria fussed over both of us. Ice for my bruises, food I couldn't eat, blankets and tea and grandmother's comfort. Dante stayed close, touching me constantly like he needed to confirm I was real. That night, I stood in the shower until the water ran cold, washing away the fear and the violence and the last traces of the girl I used to be. When I came out, Dante was waiting in his room, our room. I was starting to think of it. Can't sleep? I asked. Not until I know you're okay. I crossed to him, still damp from the shower, and kissed him slowly. I'm okay. Because of you. Because you're brave, he corrected. Because you survived. We survived. His arms came around me and we stood there in the dim light, just breathing together. What happens now? I asked eventually. Now we live. He kissed my forehead. We figure out what normal looks like for us. Maybe you go back to school. Maybe you find a job you actually like instead of one you need. Maybe we travel, or stay here, or buy a house by the ocean. Maybe we just be happy for a while. Yeah. His voice was soft. Maybe we just be happy. 6 months later, I stood in Dante's kitchen, our kitchen, teaching Maria's daughter how to make bread while Dante worked in his study. The annulment was ancient history. Marcus was serving 25 years for kidnapping and conspiracy to commit murder. The Rossis had signed new treaties with the Salvatores, peace bought with evidence and truth instead of blood, and I was happy. Not the desperate, grasping happiness I'd felt, planning a wedding to a man who didn't love me, but the quiet, steady happiness of being seen and valued and chosen every single day. Dante appeared in the doorway, drawn by the smell of baking bread and my laughter. He watched me with those dark eyes that had once seemed so dangerous and now just felt like home. What? I asked, catching him staring. Just memorizing this moment. He crossed to me, pulling me close despite the flour on my hands. My beautiful girl, covered in flour, laughing in my kitchen. I want to remember exactly how lucky I am. We're both lucky. Yes. He kissed me. Soft, sweet, full of promise. We are. Outside, the sun was setting over the gardens. Inside, bread was baking and music was playing and a life I'd never imagined was unfolding around me. I'd walked out of a disastrous wedding 3 days before, wrapped in a stranger's coat, with nowhere to go and nothing to lose. I'd found a home with a dangerous man who looked at me like I hung the stars. And somehow, impossibly, I'd found myself. The girl who'd been invisible was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth, who'd faced down her fears, who'd chosen love even when it came wrapped in danger and darkness. Dante's arms tightened around me. I love you, he said. Simple, certain, true. I love you too, I whispered back. And for the first time in my life, I believed in happy endings. Not because they were easy or simple or what I'd expected, but because we'd fought for hours, we'd survived the worst and chosen each other anyway, and that was the best kind of ending there was.